The first focus that we had as the crisis broke was really to keep the wheels of trade churning. The first challenge was to move from an essentially office-based setup to having a real home-based setup from both our traditional agencies, our headquarters, but also our resource centers in India and China and the Philippines. That we've been able to do without any impact to customers. Operations have kept on being fluid across the different products that we offer. The ships were able to sail, the ports were able to operate, warehouses were able to operate. Logistics being considered an essential service across the globe has really, really helped us keep the wheels churning all the way. It was very important early on to make sure that everybody in the team understood that as we were moving into virtual war rooms and coping with the many changes, that the temptation could be to hunker down and become very inward focused as you deal with the crisis. And we made the deliberate choice to actually constantly push out communication and be much more outward looking. Global trade is a community of participants. This is not just us facing a crisis. All of our customers are facing a crisis as well. Some of their retail outlets are closed, some of their supply chains are disrupted. This is the moment where they need to be able to rely on their vendors, on their partners, to make sure that they can weather the challenge. So it was not just about us weathering the challenge, but always about us weathering the challenge together with our customers to make sure that we really have all aspects taken care of here. As this crisis has been unfolding, we've seen quite a few new needs appearing. We've seen customers needing supply chain to accelerate, and we've seen customers needing supply chain to decelerate. As the economies reopen across the globe, we can expect that there would be another wave of needs. There will be surprises with some products that rebound a lot faster than others, certain lines that have a return to normal that is much faster than others. None of that can be modeled today because we've never really tried anything similar to that. It only underlines the importance of scenario planning, the importance of flexibility in the planning, but also the importance to remain very, very close to your customers. The strategy that we have had for quite a few years of investing heavily into e-commerce and different digital interfaces and channels with our customers has been incredibly helpful. From a supply chain perspective, I think that what has been really different is the fact that as long as Asia was weathering the pandemic, that was more of a supply shock to the supply chains in general. It was production that had to stop, but the demand for the products was remaining intact. So what we saw is actually a pretty strong rebound as China started to reopen. We saw a pretty strong rebound in demand for products and a bit of a catch-up for what could not have been produced while they were in lockdown to really get produced as they came back. The differences as the pandemic spread west is really that now we're seeing more of a demand shock into supply chains, with a lot of retail outlets being closed, a lot of different sectors of the economy shutting down for a while. And here I think for us the big question mark is, how is this going to rebound as it reopens? Is demand going to come back? You control supply much faster than you control demand. So that I think is the real big difference. The market has reacted very differently depending on what line of business or what verticals your business is in. And we've seen actually this reflected in the needs of our customers changing widely, from having some customers in some of the verticals like pharma, like medical supply, like foodstuff, wanting to see their supply chain accelerate as the crisis hit, and others in retail, in lifestyle, wanting their supply chain to slow down as the crisis hit, because they did not need the goods to move to their retail outlet as fast as they had. So we have had to cope actually at the same time with demands for more speed and demand for slower supply chains, which has really created a need for innovative products and innovative solutions to meet these needs. And this is where I think the strategy that we have of being very transparent, open, and having a very live dialogue with with our customers has been extremely helpful, both in them knowing that they had a partner they could trust, and having actually this relationship and these discussions around opportunities and how we could make sure that we would deploy our resources in the best possible way to support what they needed. So if you look at the US economy, 2/3 of it is consumption. And if the consumption comes back after the lockdown, then it will look a lot like what we have experienced in Asia. If it takes longer time to come back, then this is going to be a more protracted recovery. Of course, this disruption for a lot of us, the closest comparison we have to it is really the financial crisis that happened about 10 years ago, because this is where we saw also a sharp contraction in demand, and it took some time for the rebound to come about. But that parallel has a lot of validity, but has also areas where actually there is a lot of differences. I think the big differences in this case is that you have entire parts of societies that have not just slowed down, but they have actually come to a halt. And that to see how this is going to be reinstated, how this is going to pick up again on the other side, is not something that we have tried before. And that creates a lot of new problems and new challenges that we have to solve for. So we have had to stretch the extent of our scenario planning to make sure that no matter how this ends up panning out, we are here and we are ready to weather it as a company, and we're ready to continue to support our customers on the other side. This is certainly not a time for companies to only hunker down and just look at the next few weeks. It is really, really key to keep the long beams on and to keep on really pushing on the elements of the transformation that only get vindicated as you see this crisis unfold. The ability that we have had to cope with all of these challenges in such a short time has been truly inspiring to see. And I would say when we look back sometimes, it really feels like the crisis has been a lot longer than it has been just because of the list of things that we have had to do. And that gives me a tremendous pride to see what this organization has been able to cope with very, very limited planning, very, very limited previous training on that type of scenario. This has been probably the highest period of change since the invention of the container. And yet, I would say that for the most part, customers would say that the movements of their goods have been by and large unaffected, or the effect has been quite minimal. The resilience that we have been able to show in this first part of the crisis, I think, is a tribute to the quality of the organization, and also builds a lot of confidence in the ability that we will have to continue to meet those challenges here in the nearest future.